Hello and welcome back. Today we're going to look at stuff. Hello, welcome back to my world of stuff. My name is Paul Mount. I'm back from my trip to Birmingham to see Inside Number 9. Thank you very much to all of those who've looked at my travel vlog, which I put together last night and put up as an early Saturday morning treat. I wasn't sure how interesting that would be. It's not the sort of thing that I tend to do on this channel, but as I've been somewhere and done something, I thought I would just put something together, and it seems to be going on quite well. It's ticking over quite nicely, so thank you for everybody who's watched that video and, of course, left comments on it. So, yes, it's Saturday, the 6th of December now. It's pretty miserable out there. It's wet and grey and horrible. I spent the day so far just chilling and getting my energy back after a busy couple of days. But I thought I would do a video this afternoon to show you some new bits and pieces that have come my way. Now, I also want to apologise for the fact that I'm doing that rather than the meat and potatoes of this channel, which are retrospectives of old films and TV. I haven't done a lot of that lately, and I am conscious of that there's been a lot of collectibles corner and physical media updates and unboxings and all that sort of stuff. However, if you're a fan of the retrospectives and so on, there are plenty on the way. There's one hopefully coming tomorrow of a show which has been requested several times by one particular subscriber in particular who wants to know what I think about this show. And I'm just about to finish off that one tonight. And there will be more in the next few weeks. It's just that this time of year is a bit hectic. So I haven't had a chance to sit down and really get stuck into the retrospective stuff, which I enjoy doing as much as I hope you enjoy watching them. So today it is a sort of an unboxing. There's a bit of an unboxing. There's a bit of commentary on something that I want to talk about, Doctor Who related. And there's this, something which arrived this week in the post. This is a beautiful thing which arrived, I think this arrived on Wednesday, because it was here when I got back from Birmingham. This is a Mondas Cyberman mega figure, courtesy of Master Replicas, who, as many of you know, have taken over some of the licensing from Eagle Moss, who went bust a few years ago. Eagle Moss did this figure, and obviously they weren't complete sellouts. And last weekend, Master Replicas had a sort of a flash weekend sale where this was reduced by about half price. And one of the Mega Daleks, which I love, one of the Death to the Daleks was also reduced in price. And I do like those particular Daleks. I like that sort of silver livery that they had in that story. Very tempted to get another one of those, but I've got one of those, but I don't have one of these. This was a bit pricier, but it was not exactly a steal, but it was half price from the original price, and I couldn't resist it. It's a Mondas Cyberman, as I said. It is in fact a Mondas Cyberman as they appeared in the Peter Capaldi two-part finale, titles of which elude me because I'm not a fan of those particular episodes. And they're not a complete replica of the original 1966 Mondas Cybermen from William Hartnell's final story, The 10th Planet. If you look at a photograph of the originals, which I will put up here, you will see that the chest units in the originals are bigger and bulkier and heavier. These are more slimmed down, presumably for ease of the actors wearing them, but they are basically authentic to the design of the original classic Cybermen, which I think was a superb design at the time. When you look at how the Cybermen have developed in Doctor Who over the years, became more streamlined and more mechanical, and the modern Cybermen, I think, which have gone too far down that road, and they've sort of lost the element of the Cybermen being converted human beings. That quite terrifying idea of people having their body parts replaced with mechanical parts and losing their emotions and becoming cold, logical creatures. That's quite a chilling idea, which I think has sort of got lost a bit over the years. But I think it's very well shown in this story, because this is a very early version of the Cybermen in the early stages of their transition from humanoid to cybernetic. As you can see, these early Cybermen had the hands that were part of the organic body that hadn't yet been replaced. Both hands are very human. The face, that sort of cloth mask thing. I mean, these were designed because of the lack of funds that the BBC had to actually create the Cybermen, so they had to do the best they could with very primitive technology and very primitive materials, I suppose. But I think it's quite a chilling design. The idea of this Cyberman mask, which is this almost a cloth-like thing over the face, which retains the vestiges of the human face. This is something which, of course, has followed the Cybermen all the way through their time on Doctor Who. The little dots for the eyes and the little slit of a mouth, which really emphasises for me the fact they are humanoid creatures inside these skins as they were here, because they're not, as the Cybermen are supposed to be, sort of metallic now. This is sort of a cloth design it was supposed to be originally. I think it's a great design. I think this is a really great figure. And even though it is a Capaldi era Mondas Cyberman rather than a Hartnell era one, it looks close enough. And it reminds you of how brilliant that design was with these really clunky chest units. As I said in the original Cyberman, that part of it's particularly much bigger and it's much more sort of held by the sides as they walked along. But I think it's a great design. This is a really, really nice figure, and I'm using that word again. But it is a fantastic figure. I like the pose of the creature reaching out. And I think it sort of sums up everything that the Mondas Cybermen were. So I will just give you a twirl of the thing. It's on its big base stand there. It looks fantastic. I've just got to find somewhere to put it now because I've got so many figurines and things all over the place. It's hard quite to know where to put them all, but I will find somewhere for it, I'm sure. That's the Mondas Cybermen. Unfortunately, they are now back to full price. It was very much a flash sale, and I was very fortunate to actually get an email or just to find it. And it was one of those things where, shall I, shan't I? Because I've picked up a lot of stuff this Christmas in various sales, in the Black Friday sales in Amazon and Amazon's books and all sorts of stuff, HMV, and you can't take it with you. So I can't take that with me either, but I've got it here with me while I'm alive. I also have one more thing. I had something which arrived today, which again was a result of an online order. I had a parcel. Yes, I had a parcel which arrived today. I ordered this last weekend. In fact, I ordered it the same day as I ordered the Cybermen. So that was not an expensive day. This was from Anderson Entertainment, who represent the merchandising arm, I suppose, of classic Gerry Anderson film and TV stuff. And I'm sure many of you will know I'm quite a fan of that sort of classic TV stuff. I'm a huge fan of the Gerry Anderson worlds, and I can watch any of those shows anytime you like, really. But they had quite a nice little sale on some not newer items, but some things which have been sitting in their warehouses for quite some time. So I picked myself up, you can see, a book. There's a nice little, well, it's an invoice actually, yes. 3 things I bought, and there was one thing that was a sort of a free gift. So I shall take them all out of the box and then display them all for you. Let's get all this out. It's two Blu-rays and a book and a freebie. So let's chuck that box to one side. My house is currently full of cardboard boxes because between us we've bought so many things in the last week or so. Things for Christmas, things that I've bought and odds and sods that are all come in great big cardboard boxes. So it's a trip to the tip for me tomorrow. So here's the Anderson stuff I bought. I'll show you the Blu-ray first of all, the 2 Blu-rays. I picked up this. This is the documentary which came out a couple of years ago, Gerry Anderson, A Life Uncharted. This is an extended director's cut of a very personal and intimate story of the life and times of the great Gerry Anderson, as told by his son Jamie, with lots of contributions from various people who worked with him over the years. This came out about 2 years ago, and I think it was about 90 minutes originally. This is a longer version, which runs to 113 minutes, so there's pretty much extra half an hour of stuff here. Haven't seen it since it came out, so I'm quite looking forward to revisiting this, and this was reduced to, I don't know, 6-7 quid, something like that. And if you're an Anderson fan, you will probably have got this or have seen it, and it's well worth picking up. I also picked up this one. I've not seen this for years. It's the first, it's not the first, in fact, it's the first live-action Gerry Anderson science fiction film. He did the 2 Thunderbirds films in the 60s, and then towards the end of the 60s, he and his wife Sylvia were moving more into, or trying to move more into doing live-action stuff. And they released a film called Journey to the Far Side of the Sun, known in America as Doppelganger, or the other way around, I'm not entirely sure. This is about an astronaut played by Roy Finnis, who at the time had been in an American series called The Invaders, which I'll be covering, incidentally, next year on this channel, which was a sci-fi series about this man fighting against a covert invasion of humanoid aliens. And he was cast in this film, which was Gerry's attempt to become a film director. That never really worked out for him. This film wasn't a big success. I haven't seen it for years. It's a bit dull. It's a bit plodding. It's about a man who travels to another Earth on the other side of the galaxy, which is a mirror image of our Earth. Everything is the other way round. What's interesting about this film is that there are lots of design elements and costumes and even cast who would go on to appear in the sublime UFO a year or so later. As I haven't seen this for a very long time indeed. There's no special features on it, it's just the film. But I'm quite interested in watching this again, and I will probably do a retro feature on that on the channel sometime in the new year. Let's have a look at this book, which has come in this sort of odd corrugated paper. This is a book which came out a couple of years ago as well. You would have thought I might have bought this before. Such is my devotion to the series it chronicles. This is the UFO, it's bigger than I thought, UFO Shadow Technical Operations Manual. Now, Anderson Entertainment have done lots of books like this, all about previous shows. Captain Scarlet's had one, I think Space 1999, Stingray. But I love that smell of newish books. I didn't pick this one up. I don't know why, because it's UFO, and as you know, I'm a big fan of that show. But this is a book which is, as it says, a technical manual. It's full of details about Shadow and its equipment. I'm just flicking through it now. Lots of lovely photographs. I will show you in a minute. Lots of photographs and details about Shadow control and various Shadow operatives and the machines and the bases. A lot of it is ideas spinning out of the series about how the technology of Shadow came about and how it was created, design drawings, lovely pieces of art, which I have seen throughout this. Yeah, this is a book I really should have picked up a long time ago, because I am a massive fan of Gerry Anderson's UFO. One of the greatest questions in human existence has been answered. There is life beyond planet Earth. However, the advanced alien civilization we have encountered does not come in peace, and now a secret war is being waged under the very nose of humanity. Battle to prevent the extraterrestrials harvesting humans and threatening us with extinction has also triggered a quantum leap in scientific and technological advances, culminating in the formation of Shadow. Illustrated with the wealth of imagery and detailing Shadow's deepest secrets, you'll be briefed on the people, the machines, the bases, and the alien threat, and the battle being fought from the depths of Earth's oceans to the vacuum of lunar space. So I'm glad to have finally picked that up. Again, I can't remember how much it was. It was in the Gerry Anderson sale. I think everything I bought came to about 30 quid. I was sent as a free gift, because of my order, this set of 33 RPM mini albums. Now, these are revisions, I believe, of the discs that came out in the 1960s during the height of, I won't call it Anderson mania, but the popularity of the Gerry Anderson shows, when we had things like TV Century 21 comic, as well as all these great TV shows that seem to come out of this production line. The factories in Slough, where Century 21 was based, they had so much merchandise that came out. As I said, there were the comics, books, annuals, and Anderson even branched into records. Remember records, kids? Vinyl! It's all the rage, apparently, again. And they released a number of EP-type records which commemorated the shows with special productions, mini versions of TV episodes, and other extracts from other shows. I know that one of them had a clip from a Doctor Who story in it, because there was that connection between Century 21 and the Dalek comic strip. And this is the first of those discs, 21 Minutes of Adventure, as they were called, a trip to Marineville. Join Troy Tempest on a personally conducted tour of the World Aquanaut Security Patrol's famous base at Marineville. Hear the sounds and secrets of the mighty organisation which supports and directs Stingray into battle. So that's the first disc. Really nice. I think these are pretty much recreations of the covers of those EPs as they appear, though I stand to be corrected as ever. And then we decided to get the record itself. 21 Minutes of Adventure. So I presume that means there's 11 and a half minutes on each side. 10 and a half minutes on each side. Math's not my strong point. So that's the first one. Then the second one is 21 Minutes of Adventure Into Action with Troy Tempest. This mini album has been specially recorded so that you yourself can play the parts of Troy Tempest and Phones in these thrilling stories. Ooh, exciting. And the third one, I think this was also an original, Again, please leave a comment down below if you know more about this than me, because I'm just blundering around the history of these Century 21 records. Marina speaks at last. You're the voice of the mysterious and beautiful Marina, and why she may never speak again. Original story by Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, featuring Atlanta, Troy Tempest, Commander Shaw, and Marina. So I think, yeah, that clearly is one that was done at the time. They probably all are, but as I say, I'm not an expert. So really nice to have these free, because I think the set were about 20, 30 quid when they came out. So it's quite a nice little freebie. Yeah, I see what they mean about how you can play the characters, because there's a sort of a script that you can follow if you wanted to read along with the story. As if anyone's going to do that. So these are the things I've had in the last few days, and they're just fantastic bits of wonderful nostalgia, which it's great to pick up those sorts of things at the sale time of the year. And I'm very pleased with all of these things, and I'm going to be spending some time reading that UFO book over the next few days, although I still do have some Christmas type things going on in my life. When's it going to end? So that's the new stuff which I have had. I just wanted to mention before I go that on Thursday, when I was travelling back from Birmingham, I became aware that a new video had been released alongside an announcement of the next Doctor Who The Collection Blu-Ray box set, which is due up next March. This is one which I think most of us were probably expecting, particularly if we'd seen some photographs that were released or appeared on social media a couple of months ago of Peter Davison playing the Fifth Doctor and Janet Fielding as his companion Tegan Jovanka, filming with the TARDIS at Butler's Wharf in the shadow of the Tower of London, which, as you will probably know, was the location for the 1984 Doctor Who two-part extended serial Resurrection of the Daleks. And with season 21 being pretty much the last season from that post John Nathan Turner long era of Doctor Who, it was quite obvious that they were doing some work in preparation for a new Blu-ray box set. And it was quite interesting because, of course, the last year or so, we haven't had any of those really nice, charming little mini-sodes or vignettes where you saw the old characters back in action in a new mini-story written by Pete McTeague, who has written several Doctor Who episodes in the past, and of course is co-writer for The War Between the Land and the Sea, which starts on BBC One tomorrow. So I took a look at this video. It's a charming little video. It's on YouTube, of course. You can look at it there. It shows the Doctor and Tegan, as the actors portray them now, landing in Butler's Wharf. When they filmed there, it was a wreck. It was the old Wapping warehouse area, and it had fallen into decay over the decades, and it was falling apart. It was dank and dripping. It's got those fantastic gantries, which I find so atmospheric and so Victorian. And that's what I like about them. It represents that old era of London as a working port and a dock. And you just walk down there. I walked down there years ago. It's long since been redeveloped, of course. It's now full of restaurants and cafes and bijou apartments and luxury dining areas. It's a really nice upmarket area now. But when you watch it in that Doctor Who story, it's wet and it's cold and it's crumbling. And the Doctor and Tegan go back to this area and they investigate a building which has apparently been flooded. They find a dead astronaut or space trooper, and they find a device which is a communication device which, if you're a long-time fan of Doctor Who, you'll recognise as being in the design of the planet Trion, which was the home of the Fifth Doctor's one-time companion Turlough, played by Mark Strickson. They activate this thing and they pick up a message from Turlough, who's telling them that their planet Trion has been invaded, and the Doctor and Tegan turn around to find out who's invaded the planet. It's a lovely little piece. And it is charming because obviously Peter Davison and Mark Strickson and Janet Fielding are obviously that much older, but they still pull it off. It's quite weird that they can still pull off the idea of the Fifth Doctor and his companions now, 40 odd years later, playing those parts and doing it quite convincingly, because Janet is back in the Doctor Who fold big time these days after having appeared in the Jodie Whittaker final episode, Power of the Doctor. And Peter Davison, for all that he has over the years grumbled a little bit about his time at Doctor Who, he also has embraced it now as something which should be celebrated and cherished rather than brushed aside as something he did when he was younger. Because Peter Davison is still a working actor, he still gets a lot of roles, and it is nice that he is still willing to do stuff like this for the fans and for the show that is his pension fund, I suppose, in a way. What is particularly nice, of course, is that we got this box set to look forward to. It's coming out in March. I was a little bit miffed at first when I discovered that the price has gone up £3 from $54.99 to $57.99. But this set is 10 discs. Now, normally it's 8 discs, but this set is spread over a couple of extra discs. And when you look at the new special features, and as I've said in the past, these the main reason I buy these sets, because they are fantastic. The sets are brilliant. The Doctor Who sets, alongside the Blake 7 sets, are the very best of cult television on physical media. And this new set looks as if it's going to keep up that tradition. Now, I think I've mentioned elsewhere, I was slightly disappointed perhaps by season 13. I didn't feel it went quite as far as it could have done. There's some great new stuff on there, but I think it was missing something cohesive around the middle of it to bind it all together, because that is such an important season. But there is some great stuff on here, fun stuff as well as interesting stuff. We have got, off the top of my head, we've got 3, count them, 3 Matthew Sweet interviews with Doctor Who cast. We've got his chat with Janet Fielding. We've got a chat with Mark Strickson, who played Turlough, and we've got a chat with Matthew Waterhouse, who played Adric. Presumably these are going to be hour-long interviews with these now senior actors from 1980s Doctor Who. And that's going to wrap up the era, really, because I think he's spoken to all the main cast from that era who are still around. But this sort of wraps it all up now that he gets to talk to these 3. So that'll be a really nice focal point. But there's more. There is what looks like a fun piece which follows in the trend on season 20, I think, where Janet Fielding, Peter Davison and Sarah Sutton went on a road trip to Germany to get to a Doctor Who convention. On this one, they're doing a canal trip. It looks like they're doing a boating trip, which looks like that could be fun, because those 3 have this quite amusing, bantering relationship, which is always entertaining to watch. We also have the usual Gogglebox type behind the sofa, which, as I say, are always those sort of one-watch things where you see various cast from Doctor Who sitting and watching these episodes and then talking about them. They're sort of fun to watch. It's got new special effects, because there are 2 stories in this season in particular which have some very wonky effects. The Warriors of the Deep Merca creature and the Magma creature, and the otherwise brilliant Caves of Androzani. I think they've done some work on improving them. And there are new spaceships and laser beams and all that sort of fluffy sort of peripheral effects stuff has been tightened up. I'm sure there's other documentaries as well, but I can't remember them for the life of me now. I'll put a picture up here of the stuff that's on there. So it's another good-looking set for Doctor Who. I think there's making-ofs as well. There's a new making-of for Resurrection of the Daleks, and one of the other stories. Peter Davison's 3rd and final season, and it's his best season. And I think, historically, Peter Davison, when he was doing his 2nd season, he had the chance to do a 4th, because I think he'd signed up for 3 seasons. But he was frustrated and disappointed by his 2nd season, which had some industrial problems at the BBC and certain scripting issues, and he decided not to come back for a 4th series. When his 3rd season turned out to be better, he, I think, retrospectively wished he'd stayed on for another year. And I think that would have been interesting, because I think he was really getting into his stride as the Doctor in his 3rd season. It would have been nice to see where he could take it. But this is a really good batch of stories, and we'll just run through what they are. There's Warriors of the Deep, which is quite timely because it features the return of the Sea Devils, and they're back on TV tomorrow night. And I quite like the story, Warriors of the Deep, because I think it has a really interesting visual aesthetic to it. It's set in this sea base hundreds of years in the future, or 100 years in the future, which has technicians who control the nuclear armour of one of the great power blocks on the Earth. The Silurians and the Sea Devils awaken from slumber with another one of their plots to wipe out the human apes who have ruined their gaff. A lot of people criticise this story. There's a lot to criticise in it. A lot of people say, it's far too brightly lit. Well, they're in an underwater base, thousands of feet beneath the surface. You're going to have the lights on full blast. But there are other issues, of course. There's the Merca, which is terrible. There's some dodgy performances. There are some wonky effect sequences. But I do like the story. I think it's quite a tough, contemporary sort of Cold War story at the time when these sorts of things about nuclear weapons and so on were, as they are today, unfortunately, in the news. So I think it's a very good and a very underrated story. Then we have The Awakening, which is a sort of from slightly something and nothing two-parter, which sort of tries to revisit the tone of, say, The Demons from 1971, but is a bit throwaway. Then we have Frontios, which is a really good story set on a colony planet far in the future. It's quite a Russell T Davies type story. He always said about those sort of other planet science fiction stories, he would only do them if there were human beings there in difficulty. And that's exactly a template for that sort of story here. This human colony is being attacked and bombarded by meteorites, and then something is pulling people beneath the ground. It's got some really interesting monster designs in the Tractators, who are a classic, slightly wonky Doctor Who monster, but they're quite effective, sort of giant woodlouse type creatures. Then we have the resurrection of the Daleks, which is a bit of a mess as a story, but I think it's Eric Saywood trying to recreate the formula from Earthshock, where he brought back the Cybermen a couple of years ago. He tries to do it with the Daleks here, but I think as a story, it's a little bit too mean-minded because there's so much death and so much misery. There's very little of that sort of beating heart of goodness of Doctor Who here, because it's very dark and very bleak. And it eventually led to the very worst novelisation in the history of Doctor Who, when Eric Saywood wrote the novelisation a few years ago. Clearly, easily one of the worst books I've ever read. Don't go near it. Then we have Planet of Fire, which is Turlough's last story, which is boring, frankly. It's set on the volcanic planet of Sarn. It was filmed in Tenerife, so it looks nice, but the story is very dull and very dreary. Then we have the genius of Robert Holmes' come back to the show, Caves of Androzani, a masterpiece, and it makes you realise what a great writer he was, even towards the end of his career, as it turned out to be. A superb story, which really gave Peter Davison a fantastic exit storyline. And the season ended, oddly enough, with Colin Baker appearing in the very final serial, The Twin Dilemma, about which it's probably best to say very little. I note on this new set there are interviews with the two boys who played the twins in The Twin Dilemma, and it will be quite fun to see what they've got to say about their performance and the episodes all these years later. And I know there's some comments from Colin Baker. So it's a nice run of stories. Even the ones that aren't very good are sort of watchable, but there are a couple of really decent stories in here. So I'm really looking forward to getting a hold of the set, which is out in March and available for pre-order, and I pre-ordered it. So there we are. That's me banging on about things that I'm not entirely sure about, these records and exactly what's on the new Blu-ray set, but it's all stuff that's coming, so it's very exciting. Right, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, don't forget, if you're new, like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below. Love to know if you've picked up any of this stuff lately, and what your thoughts are about the upcoming Doctor Who Blu-ray set. I'm very much looking forward to that. Doctor Who is a show which always seems to be sailing close to the wind of cancellation and becoming obsolete and vanishing, and then things come along that give it a lift and put it back in the public eye again. And whilst this Blu-ray set obviously is very much for the cult niche audience who collect all these things, it shows that the BBC still care about the show. And I think that close as it seems to have come this year to finally disappearing, I think it's hanging on in there, and it will return bigger and better than ever. Well, who knows? Anyway, that's me for now. Please stick around if you enjoyed the video. I will see you soon. Until I do, keep taking the stuff.